It's 106 miles to Chicago. We've got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hello.
Let's hit it. Hello, everybody. Today we have our special guest and expert, Laurie McCabe, with us. Thanks for joining, Laurie, and sharing with us some brand new topics, top trends, and right out of the press, the latest informations you did on researching what's going on in the SMBs in 2023. We are thrilled.
Thank you guys for having me.
We are thrilled. We are grateful as you do share those simply right after they have been available with us, and that you are giving us an opportunity to ask you a lot of questions we have prepared in the way of we would like to start the flow with that you please introduce yourself and to the audience a bit about what you are doing in the SMB space, Laurie.
Yeah, and I did see all your questions. It is a lot. I don't know if we're going to get through it all. But yeah, so I'm Laurie McCabe, and I've been an industry analyst for a good probably 25 plus years now. And since 2010, been focused exclusively on the small and medium business market. And we started SMB Group, our company, in 2010, kind of in the depth of the Great Recession there. And we do pretty much what most analyst firms do, research, consulting, educational content, all those things. But we only do them for SMB. So we don't do any research in the enterprise space. Because we figure, Gartner, Forrester, everybody else, there's a lot out there that are already doing that. So our focus is really on SMB. We do these top 10 trends for SMBs, top 10 tech trends every year. And I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about this year's trends.
Well, the big enterprises are always willing to tell us what they're going to do. It's marketing for them. But for the smaller and, for the small and medium businesses, it isn't always easy to get that information. So it's great that we have you to help sort it out.
Perfectly true. So
I'm excited
as we are. What is the biggest change to last year? I mean,
well, yeah, like I said, we do a lot of research, survey research. So, I mean, going into 2022, so if we dial back a year, the end of 2021 when we surveyed small and medium businesses, we really saw, the top trends that they were really concerned about, kind of the trends beyond their control were inflation and supply chain issues, and then infectious diseases. Those were the top three. So, as we head now into 2023, we see things have shuffled a little. The top three now are inflation, recession, and then supply chain. And infectious diseases is way down on the list at number 6. So I think, when you hear, people are beyond COVID, I think a lot of people, even though it is still out there, it's not done with us. A lot of people kind of want to put it in the rearview mirror. And, I think the other big thing is we had the inflation trend front and center as number 1 going into last year. And that still is up there. But the new devil, I guess, is recession, the looming or pending or potential or whatever recession. So people are worried about that. And, so I think those are kind of the major changes in kind of what they think is, as I think we put it in the trends, kind of the headwinds they're fighting.
So if supply chain is less of a topic, is that because of fears of recession, kind of?
Well, it's still in number 3. It's still number 3, so I would not poo-poo it. I mean, I think I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, because it'd be too much for me to be looking at that and talking to you. But it's not like it's gone away. I think just recession has become, more of a cloud and more of a concern that wasn't really on the horizon.
Okay, so I just was wondering
then,
because
right.
the situation there didn't really change, right? So there are still
concerns
difficulties
about supply chain.
in the supply chain. Less so in transporting because the prices went down a lot, but the container prices. But still,
Yeah, I mean eggs, right? We all read about the eggs all the time, and all the issues, everything from avian flu that disrupts the egg supply chain to I don't know, everything else. So it's still an issue. I think in some cases, some businesses, depending on what industry you're in, they've kind of figured out new suppliers and new ways to get what they need, or new ways to get different things to substitute, right? But it's definitely still
Chocolate
one of the
eggs.
top three.
How about chocolate eggs?
Yeah.
Kinder eggs for everyone.
That's interesting, but it's not only the eggs, like the eggs from the hen, but it is, if you go for a standard bakery and they have gone into globalization, they get these little things where they make their biscuits and their breads and all this stuff out of China. And if you have a lockdown, at a sudden, no more food. That's not good. Yeah.
Right.
There we have, in the minimalism of the daily support and daily food getting procured and for our daily supply, we can suddenly face challenges. But you texted in one of the headlines something which flashed me, something like the SMBs are in combat with negative headwinds.
Yeah.
I would like you to elaborate a bit more on those, please.
Well, those are the headwinds, right? Those are the mainly economic concerns that they're facing. And, I think the result of that, though, is that for the first time in a while, we have seen controlling costs come up as their top operational or business challenge, right? So, SMBs are always cost conscious, and they're always, they don't have the deep pockets maybe of a large business. But I think that pressure had let up somewhat as the pandemic, when it first hit. Of course, everybody was like a deer in the headlight. What is going to happen? But then a lot of companies were able to kind of, reposition themselves and do what they needed to do to survive, and in some cases thrive during the pandemic. Of course, some went out of business, but those that managed to stick around, a lot of them found alternate ways to go to market, alternate ways to sell, alternate ways to provide service. Of course, a lot of these are virtual. And so I think they basically took lemons and made lemonade, and it became all about growing the business, right? And so, this controlling cost thing, I think everybody now is worried about the recession and worried about inflation, and they want to make sure that their cash flow is positive, because, that's the biggest reason, especially in the small business sector, that people go out of business, right? They just don't have the cash coming in to support their costs. But after that, I mean, the things that they're thinking about in terms of challenges are very much focused. First, I think the first big area is on the customer, attracting new customers, improving the satisfaction and retention for customers they have, just keeping up with the new ways people want to buy things or do business, right? Because it is still shifting. And then the second big area is all around the employees, right? Making them more productive, collaborative, engaged, so they don't lose them, because there's, the talent crunch is still a factor. So I think that's how these trends at the macro level affect them. And the other big thing we see is that their optimism about 2023 revenue performance, it's dipped. It's dipped
down,
for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and we surveyed people, only 19% or something like that thought that, their revenues would be on the rise. But from then on, it started climbing way up, and I think it was almost like 2/3, in July. But now that's dropped. Only about 41% of the small and medium businesses in our survey said that they thought they'd have better revenues in 2023 than 2022. And most of the rest, they're saying, predicting flat, some decline, but a lot of them just flat.
Well, after the past years, flat is still quite good. But then,
flat would still be good, right?
looking at if they are looking at if they are becoming more cost conscious, and at the same time want to attract new customers as a top priority, actually, which is more expensive than maintaining the customers, I would be interested in figuring out what do they see as their spending and priorities then in order to enable that. And the secondary, of course, is why.
I just want to be clear. It's not like they only care about attracting new customers. They also want to provide their existing customers with better experience. So their top priorities overall in marketing and sales and service, we found out, customer retention, brand awareness, creating a more personalized customer experience. And then they also want better reporting and analytics. And they are still, even though a lot of them expanded their sales channels to do a lot more online during the pandemic, they still want to keep going there. So I think, everybody kind of realizes now that it's all very interconnected, like the service you provide. A lot of SMBs got very heavily into social media over the last few years, right? And they know one bad review, one bad rant, whatever, can really be a negative for their company. So they definitely want to make sure they're providing a good customer experience. It's not just about attracting new customers.
No, it's not just about. What I found very interesting is that there is a significant difference in the number of companies that put retaining customers, I think it was number 3, not to be that negative, but there's still a significant difference between attracting new customers to retaining customers. And that in a cost-conscious environment where we are basically knowing that retaining a customer or acquiring a new customer is about 3 times more expensive than retaining an existing one.
Well, I would definitely, advise any business to, once you've won the customer, right, and they're in the door, especially in any kind of service-oriented business, it is, as you said, there's a really high cost of customer acquisition, and you want to keep those customers happy. Now, if you're kind of in the widget business, you're selling, you're one of many, many vendors selling, I don't know, name any kind of consumable product. It's a little tougher, if you're I just went shopping for some stuff for Puerto Rico for our trip, and I went to Amazon, and I always try to buy from a small business seller, right? Because that's kind of where my heart lies. And I go by their ratings, though. Now we don't know how good or bad these. I know there's a lot of false reviews, but then I go and see, okay, so if there's number of small businesses selling this product, which ones get strong reviews. So it is both, I think. I think it is very interrelated, although you're right, it's different motions to go through, but it all it's all circular.
Circular industry. There we are in circular
Uh-huh.
economy.
Now we go for sustainability, SMBs, and
Yeah.
the leading edge in sustainability. But I like your approach, such as if you have a mom and pop store who has gone e-commerce or web-wise, or you can order and collect it around the corner. That is my favorite as well, instead of buying it with the large giants. On the other hand, I unfortunately have real challenges to get the stuff together, such as time pressure, kids calling. We
Right.
need an immediate delivery on. You have the Prime account. Could you please save your kids? What will you do? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Amazon does have a whole small seller kind of program, and they feature them.
Yeah.
So if all things are equal, now, of course, if you can only get it through a large business, right? But it depends on what you're shopping for.
I make a lot of usage of used goods I buy through their marketplaces, such as books or stuff which is not too complicated. Or what I learned from my kids is to buy also, they call it textile circular. The name is program Kleiderkreisel, and which means that you can buy their brand names for a lot less, used stuff, and you buy it via web. And you have also the guarantee, if you're not satisfied, you can return it, such as if it's broken or something like that. Yeah. But what is the benchmark and is often challenging the small, medium enterprises, as I observe, is to get a retaining policy or a refund which is working, and that you are as feeling comfortable as with the easy refunding services you have with Amazon. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's, I think, why so many, small merchants sell on Amazon, because they can use a lot of their infrastructure, right? But let's remember, it's not just merchants selling merchandise that are small businesses. It's restaurants, it's people that might do the plumbing in your house, it's
Consultancies.
the lawyer around the corner, the dental practice, the small manufacturer. So it's, we as consumers tend to think of all these retail businesses, but they're just as diverse in terms of industry as large enterprise, of course.
Is, as I phrased it, after the pandemic, a return of the good old times and going to the shop again and get that what I most have missed. Not only the small talk, not only the friendly old owners' recipes and guidance to serve a miracle to my wife, but also to get some advice to choose the right product. I'm missing that.
I know that from what I've read, at a high level, that there is a lot of people have kind of tried to return to the brick and mortar on the one hand. On the other hand, like you said, Rolf, we're all kind of looking for convenience, right? And we don't only have limited time. And I think that once patterns of the customer change and they're used to, just getting it delivered. And I know in the town I live in here in Groton, Massachusetts, we soon will not have a really wonderful, natural, holistic food and medicine store, right? And the people that work there would take a lot of time with you, to help you select the right herbal this, that, or the other thing, or CBD oil, or whatever it was. But they are going out of business, and I think it's really a mixed bag. Some people can find the formula to survive and thrive in that brick and mortar But I think more and more you need more than just a brick and mortar. You probably, if you're selling merchandise, you probably need to supplement that somehow with e-commerce, because people just want it when they want it.
But getting back a little to the environment, as long as with the priority. So there is less willingness to spend money, but some need to spend it.
Right.
What are they prioritizing right now for their investments?
The SMBs?
The SMBs, yeah.
Yeah. So in, overall or for CRM?
Well, let's start overall and then probably go into CRM, as we are CRM guys.
Well, one of the things we really see is that for the first time ever, integration kind of topped the list of their technology challenges, right? So the cloud has made it really easy for any business to get a lot of applications, right? But then they started kind of reach a point where, all right, I've got this application for this and that for that. And all of a sudden I've got 10, 15, 20 applications. And they all do their own little thing in their own silo, but they don't connect with other applications. Yeah. So we are seeing, I think, a lot of companies say, how can I do a better job getting everything, all this data, so it connects and one thing flows to another. And what we see is that application marketplaces are becoming more important ways for customers to select that next app, because let's say you're using already, for a lot of SMBs, accounting is kind of their foundation app. So you're using Xero or you're using Intuit or whatever you're using, and you're not just like running out, going on the web and just doing a general search to find out what you want to get for invoicing or what you want to get for inventory management. You're going to that app store and you're seeing, well, what already integrates with this? Or you're even, we're all very familiar with Zoho, where, obviously they've got, 50, 60 apps of their own, which to some degree or another integrate. And we also see the vendors really, tapping into this, because in any given application category, the vendors are creating more of their own apps, right? So, they know that whatever app they have, that's not going to be the be all and end all. So how can I kind of fill out that white space for the customer, and with my own applications and or with partner apps? Sometimes it's kind of like a co-opetition thing, but the SMBs really are looking, I think, more and more to kind of streamline things.
So does this mean that they are more willing to potentially change platforms?
Well, that's a toughie. I mean, that's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
But I don't like babies.
You don't like babies?
Why
well,
that?
then it'd be easy
Hey,
for you,
man.
Marshall. It's okay. So there's aspiration and then there's actual, right? So the aspiration is to do things in a more integrated way. The actual situation, are they willing to just throw out whatever and replace it? Probably not. It depends. It depends on what they see as kind of their anchor apps, their most important apps. And then I think they try to fill around there with more integrated stuff. Now, the exception would be, obviously, I talk to a lot of customers more in the medium business space, in the mid-market. So they've outgrown, let's say, some of those entry-level products. And then now they're looking, okay, I need something more comprehensive, and I want to get something more integrated. I'm going to have to make a move anyway, and I want to do it in a more integrated way. So, I mean, a great example here, I think, is Acumatica, right? So Acumatica, they have like a medium business. They have some small businesses, but a lot of medium business customers, and a lot of them go on to Acumatica for the ERP and financials, but Acumatica also has CRM. And I think over 60% of the Acumatica customers are on Acumatica CRM, and a lot of them did say, you know what, whatever I was using before, is it really that much better? Do I really use all of this? And are the advantages of just going onto the Acumatica CRM, does that outweigh, right? And for a lot of them, the answer is, yeah, I'm just going to go to the Acumatica CRM. But none of these are easy decisions.
No. And there are some vendors who probably should read and learn a page out of the Acumatica book with regards to that.
Yeah, it's tough though, because no one vendor can do everything for everyone. I mean, even when you have a company like NetSuite, or you have a company like Acumatica, or a company like Zoho, very few customers only use their stuff, and that's because A, they like something else better, or B, that vendor doesn't have that application, or whatever. There's all kinds of reasons. So it's never going to be monolithic, but the integration does have to be easier and better. And I do think a lot of the larger application vendors are doing everything they can to make it easier for third-party apps to integrate with their own.
This opens up a whole other can of worms, actually. So integration is about value and time to value. So now the can of worms is industry solutions. And how far does that become more interesting to SMBs?
Well, yeah, we found in our survey, now this again, a lot of these things do correlate a lot with company size, right? And the importance of industry specific definitely correlates with company size. So the bigger you get, the more complicated everything gets in your company. Probably, you have more of everything, more products, more employees, more departments, more divisions, more this, more that, the other thing. And that complexity means you really want to be able to use an industry version, if you can, to streamline things. And I think where this is most notable is definitely in the ERP area. That's where people really want the industry stuff if they can get it. And I don't mean necessarily like it's a company and they only make ERP for, I don't know, discrete manufacturers. It just means that like that ERP vendor has an industry edition, right? Because I think people are a little, it's a mixed bag. You want to go to a name brand vendor a lot of times, but you want things tailored for your industry.
Yeah. So not in how far are they, well, the SMBs also looking not only to technology, but also into, let's say, industry pedigree of that vendor and the ecosystem around it.
You know what? More and more, I think, let's put it in perspective. Like I said, a brand new business or a small company with 10 people this may not be a big deal, but once they grow, and they do want, your construction company, the construction industry, I've learned, has so many intricacies, and really a lot of industries do, right? So they want things really tailored, and they're looking for that vendor to have the industry expertise in-house, people that come out of that industry. They're looking for you to do more than just talk the talk and put new labels on different fields, let's say. They're looking for the workflows and the processes and the adjunct applications that, you're in construction, you need these kinds of specific things versus if you're manufacturing, you need those. They're looking for all of that for industry, credibility and to know that it's not just window dressing.
Yeah. And that is very important, as you as a user find out on the one or the other side quite quick, or with a great disappointment, that it is just, or it was just advertised and window dressing, and not the real stuff is delivered, such as if you are in a service organization and you go, for instance, for the construction industry, and you find that you need not to lease or to buy, but simply to rent a special machine you need only for a week, and your software solution on the I rent it, or on the side where it's been rent, you are the servicing organization, that it's not fitting together, yeah, and you can't get the right paperwork, the forms and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think most companies have a little bit of heft by the time they're looking for industry specific, ERP, and they're kicking the tires. And you should be kicking the tires. And if you don't know how to kick the tires, you probably should hire a consultant to help you kick them, because as we all know, this is a major undertaking. So, you want to make the right decision. You don't want to find out like after the fact, well, these people really didn't have a clue about my industry.
Apart from size, is there also an industry differentiation between choosing industry solutions or not?
Well, I think size growth is the trigger across a lot of industries. Okay. And again, I would say a lot of this comes on the ERP side and the financial side more than the CRM side, or the HR side, let's say. But yeah, it does, I think, relate probably more to the growth and the complexity, because when people start, they're starting usually their businesses, not always, but a lot of times they're starting with horizontal software for everything, right? From accounting through CRM, through HR, through whatever. The exceptions are like, if you look at a lot of dental practices and medical practices, they're probably not buying anybody's software that, we know is a household name. They're buying a whole like doc in the box, or dental practice in a box, or even hairdresser in a box, or spa in a box. I've seen, a lot of this where everything, most everything they need, from scheduling appointments and reminders through all the billing and everything, is in one place. So it does depend on kind of the industry and the legacy of the solutions in the industry too.
How about collaboration?
Collaboration, yeah, well, always important, right? And I think we all know a lot of people invested a lot in this kind of stuff. All the collaborative tools, from video conferencing and file sharing and everything else we can think of to enhance how people work in a hybrid or remote environment together. And now these tools have kind of become staples, but I think as SMBs still kind of, they're still bringing people back to the office, but also still going to have hybrid workers, and they're going to have some remote workers. I would say in the collaboration space, people are tinkering around the edges more now. They've probably, purchased, in our data anyway, all the things that you would normally think of, like video conferencing and file sharing and these kinds of things. They've made those investments. Now, a lot of them may be thinking towards unified communications. Again, that is definitely like more, towards as people grow, or if you have a high volume of people calling your business, things like that drives unified communications spend. But the thing now, I think, is how do we get all of this to work better for us, right? As we also try to figure out, what do these workspaces look like? How do we physically configure our office workspaces? Because we're not having everyone back in the office all the time. What's the best way to make this a collaborative work environment, but also give people some privacy when they need it? So I think it's kind of a mix of physical and virtual stuff they're thinking about now.
And you have observed a very interesting aspect, as we had the circular economy and we had the recycling part, such as make use of uncomplicated front ends, such as what you found out, the VDI, the virtual desktop infrastructure, what could also be a real comeback or a breakthrough, as I remember the network computing drive out of the mid-90s, if I'm not mistaken, where network computing was a real hype and thin clients were named to be the future. And if I go for my own, let's say, machine park, I have a lot of still well-running laptops and desktops which would serve as thin clients in a proper way, whereas they will no longer work with the up-to-date software from a company in Redmond. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think, the other driver for VDI is really security, right? That we really don't want people taking all these applications and data home on a laptop where, they're there on the hard drive, right? We want them accessing that via virtual desktop so that the data is safer. And so I think that's a big drive. I also think it's easier for the IT people, once again, in a business that's big enough to have IT people, it's easier for the IT people sometimes to manage that, right? Than having everybody having their own applications. Once you get to a certain size, that sounds like a nightmare, and I'm sure it is.
I just have to step back into the year 2007, when I was one of the early adopters working for an Israeli security company. And we had a simple USB stick together with a manufacturer which was quite good in technology, memory cards and in USB sticks. And you could get a complete workspace on a USB stick with everything you need. And you could move along, such as you put out from the machine you would like to work on, USB stick, and the data was safe on the USB stick and no footprint left.
But what if you lost that USB stick?
It was stuffed.
What if you left it on the train or something?
Believe me, that as a security company was one of the little tasks, such as everything was encrypted. And it was, as one could say, there was a Swedish company they have bought, which made it unbreakable. You couldn't get it, even with brute force. Yeah.
Still gone.
Yeah, well, the aspect is that going with that technology makes it understandable that network computing or virtual desktop infrastructure does have a lot of advantages. Yeah?
Yeah, it does. And, I think, again, in the smaller companies, they don't even know what you're talking about when you talk about this a lot of times. But again, when they start hiring some IT people and they want to, have more control over the IT environment and over the data and the security, then it starts becoming really, very attractive, I think.
Yeah. Looking into spending patterns, so I'm always coming back to that, sorry. There are quite a lot of companies that basically are thinking that they are spending about the same or even a little more in technology, be it hardware or software. Within these categories, are there trends changing the direction of the spending? For example, taking software more from on-prem to as a
No,
service?
we broke our thing down by hardware, software, and services, and
Yeah.
software actually did a little better than hardware and
Yeah.
services
Yeah.
in terms of increases. But we found that they were most likely to be saying their budgets for tech spending would be flat. And again, I think this comes back to the cost, wanting to control costs, right? So on the one hand, I think it was 79% of the people we surveyed said that having the right technology solutions can really help your business, navigate through all this uncertainty and have better performance. So these, unlike maybe 10 years ago, most companies, even if they're little, they've kind of made the connection that they need technology to survive and thrive, right? But in this environment with the cost constraints, even though they see those positive benefits, I think they're going to do more tire kicking. They're really going to look for vendors that can show them the evidence, right? This is the metrics in your business or businesses like yours that this will help with, right? Whether it's, accelerating time to sales or raising customer retention or improving employee engagement. It doesn't matter what. They want, more evidence probably than they would have in other times, whenever the economy's bad, that this thing I'm going to not only spend money on, it's not just the money, it's the time. They're in really short supply.
Hard fact driven, that you really have proof in your hands,
right?
That you can show them facts, figures, the numbers.
Yeah, here's the efficiencies. Yeah, here's the efficiencies you're going to get, the insights you're going to get. How this is going to help you run your business better and do better. And, that can be hard to do for vendors sometimes. Although other times I think it's very easy and they all kind of do it. They all put out, we improve these KPIs and this, that, and the other thing. So again, you kind of have to do your homework, I think. And more important than anything is make sure this is a solution that other businesses like me use, and they, the customers are getting good results. And they're, like, so if I'm, again, that small construction company, do I really care if the vendor doesn't have a lot of construction companies? Should I really be looking at that for, again, for the ERP and financials? Probably not. Make sure that this is kind of tailor built for companies like yours, and get those customer references, and not just written customer reference, but who can I call? I want to see what other people say about this. So it's important.
Whereas calling a reference customer is a kind of a double-edged sword as well. There are not that many reference customers who are saying, "Oh, I did a wrong decision."
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But you probably glean something in a one-on-one conversation that you might not glean from just reading that glossy case study.
Yeah. But looking at those 80% of companies who are, or 79, that are saying having the right infrastructure, the right technology helps. How many of them do think that they have it?
Oh, well, I don't think we asked that in this survey, but we have asked that in the past. We have asked that question in the past. And I'd say it's usually somewhere around 50%.
So 50 of the 70, so 40% overall.
Right. Well, I don't know if we cross-tabbed it. I can't really remember. But I mean, it's usually roughly about half think they have the technology they need. Or at least if they have the right technology strategy for their company. But that means, like, there's half of them, give or take, that are saying, I don't really know. Now, you also have to remember, when you do surveys, you're surveying, we always survey business and or IT decision makers. So we could be surveying anybody from the CEO of a little tiny company, the founder, to the IT director, a mid-market company or whatever. And so those perceptions kind of color, those roles color their responses too. And I think a lot of times SMBs are very optimistic bunch for the most part and resilient.
I love that.
They have a lot of, you have to have a lot of self-confidence, right? So I think they tend to, one of the things we definitely think, I think it was one of the trends, they have a false sense of security about security. Like these guys, they think they're pretty much doing what they need to do and their companies are pretty well protected. But on the flip side, they're only using, really basic stuff, like antivirus and firewall. So they don't even know what they don't know. And that's a recipe for disaster.
And if they
being one of many.
And if they lose a USB stick, it's not encrypted, trust me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah? And
I mean, it's now you really need that. And I forget, it's XDR. I forget what it stands for, but antivirus and firewalls, those really protect you from known threats. But there's all these other things where there was a study by IBM, even in large companies, sometimes it took months for a company to even know that they had suffered a data or security breach. Because you just don't have the systems that are monitoring and alerting and then trying to remediate. They're only remediating known things. So there's a lot of overconfidence, I think, in the security space.
That's a very good finding that there is really a pain point. And also it was for me interesting to look into the findings you had in some dedicated pieces of software which they are equipped with. And I was just wondering if you can help me to close the gap in my knowledge, such as which email marketing software, social media marketing software are so the typical ones you find in the field. Because you do not mention brand names in the survey.
Right. We don't ask them what brand they use. Because we do custom surveys and a lot of times we do ask for brands in those, which they're then the property of the vendor that's working on the customer survey with us. But what you'll find in a lot of areas with SMBs is there's a huge long tail. So you just said, email marketing. Well, I'm sure if we were to do this right now, somebody like MailChimp would probably be number one. And then, you kind of go from there with other brands that we've heard of in the SMB space that do email marketing. But then there's going to be like 20, 30 things that are, going into the single digits. And it's not, especially in marketing, especially in CRM, there's so many applications. Now in accounting, definitely in the small business, there's Intuit, there's Xero to some degree in the US. And then there's, companies like Sage and then you start going all over the place, even in accounting. But there is a much higher concentration with the vendors I just mentioned. They have much bigger market shares than you would find usually in like a marketing kind of thing.
But you did make some differentiations where on one I was getting the question mark in my head, such as customer service automation software. This would be something like, which is a combination of a ticketing system and help desk, or what? So I hit the nail. Yeah.
All over the place, right? And SMBs are really good at if they buy something, right, like an internal help desk system, kind of repurposing that maybe.
Because the vendor has designed it for something completely different, but they are so smart, so inventive, and enthusiastic, such as they say, I can do this and that as well with that solution. Yeah.
Right. If they see a way they can do something with an existing solution, a lot of times they're at least going to try it.
Yeah.
Oh, why not? It's the best
Why
thing
not?
to do,
Right.
That's the best
And
thing to do.
especially-
And, I think we also don't want to underestimate, there's a lot of free tools out there for a lot of things now,
That was exactly one of the questions I wanted to ask. And do we have a big opportunity here for those vendors and solution selling organizations which are entering the market with a freemium version or free version with some limits and say, we can tell you a lot of stories, we can get you the stars from the sky, but you won't believe us. So try for yourself. Do it more than the silly 30 days, which is rubbish and crap.
Yeah, this 30-day thing is not good, right?
The honest approach would be try it for a year before you buy something larger. Yeah.
Well, sure. And you do obviously have vendors like Zoho that does that, HubSpot does that. You definitely have vendors out there that do that for at least some of their products that are very strong, reputable vendors, right? Those two certainly are. Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you have these kinds of economic conditions, people are looking for a low risk. So there's two risks. One is financial, but honestly, the bigger risk is time. The bigger risk is I put a lot of time into this, and maybe other people in my company do too. And we just get completely frustrated. It's just like, remember we used to have that term shelfware.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So I don't know what we would call the equivalent in the cloud, but we've all tried stuff that like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. Just get me out of here. And they keep sending you emails to come back. And you never spent a dime on it, but it's like you feel like it's cost you so much because it's killing you. I mean, if you have a freemium model, you really better be prepared to support it and help people onboard in a way that they can get value out of it pretty quickly, because that is the bottom line. How fast can I be productive on this and put it to work? I don't have time in my business to, luxuriate and feel everything out in excruciating detail. It's kind of like, help me do these 3 things fast. That's what I really need to do right away. Yeah. And then I'll move from there, maybe at a slower pace.
Well, productivity opens the door to questions about employee experience. I know that we had mentioned the idea of talent crunch earlier. I know that your survey said that I think 30% of SMBs were very concerned about their ability to properly motivate employees or to retain them in the first place. And just looking at the news, I know that we very smoothly transitioned from reporting that it was impossible to hold on to talent to big layoffs.
Right.
So how
well, I mean, I'm not an economist, right?
Thank goodness.
I do know that fewer SMBs are planning to hire than they were a year ago. And again, this comes back to the fact that we're in a more cost-constrained environment. However, there's still a lot of businesses that do want to hire in the SMB space, especially at the larger end of the SMB space. I think 44% of businesses that had 100 employees or more said, yes, we want to hire this coming year. But only 20% of those with under 100 employees said, yes, we want to hire. So it is, it is a mixed bag. But that talent shortage does remain, right? Because some people did kind of permanently leave the workforce. And other people said, I don't want to do that kind of job anymore. And you see like all these big tech companies laying off, and you might think, oh, well, that's good for all these other companies, right? Because maybe they can scoop up some great talent, but I don't know if that like Google software developer is, going to be the right candidate to manage IT at your 100-person business. No, he or she is not.
Not so.
So it's something, I guess it's always been around. We have often a mismatch of where the openings are and where people want to work and what they're skilled to do, right? Can you do the job? Are you willing to do the job? And are you going to fit in? All those three things. And so it's not always the case that the SMBs are going to benefit from these layoffs in the large enterprise space.
What I find interesting is going back to your observation that if you make people happy, they don't get into the nasty area of shelfware in the cloud, even that we have not yet found the word for it, that you...
Serverware.
Sorry?
Serverware.
Okay, serverware.
Maybe it's the rain cloud, I don't know.
You encourage them to get solutions done and promoted which keep it simple, smart, and deliver quick wins, quick benefits, and a good feeling. Yeah.
And that's where, I find in talking to a lot of vendors, that's where they're going. They're trying to kind of early on in that process, figure out, and I don't mean in a conversation, but online, what are these 3 things or 5 things or whatever that you want to get out of this first, and then helping them set up and configure and get going with it in that vein right off the bat, rather than, oh my God, I've done all this stuff and I still can't figure out how to do this one thing that I absolutely have to do, right? Because that's a surefire way to, not have anybody want to have what you have, what you're trying to sell. But it's, it's easier said than done because every business is different, and small and medium businesses are really diverse, very fragmented in terms of their needs, industries as we talked about. And so one size doesn't fit all. And, it's probably impossible to not have disappointments in the software world.
True.
In one of your findings, you said that, or one of the findings was that SMBs, to quite an extent, or most of them, only 6%, I think, are doing PC as a service or computer as a service.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't really jibe with the notion that the biggest risk that they face is time, not cost. So,
well, you got to realize a lot of these. So when software as a service first started, remember it was really targeted, a lot of it, to very small businesses, right? And it was cheap. Now we're at a point where, some of these vendors, it's kind of, they turned into the behemoths that they originally said, oh, we never ever want to be like them. But it was really targeted towards SMB. Things like PC as a service, though, it was really targeted first at the enterprise. And, you're looking a lot of times at $100 or more a month per
user
for somebody to have, to have access to it, have it managed, have all these things. Now, I do expect, because of a couple little birdies, but that we will see some more cost-effective things come into the market for PC as a service. But right now, I don't even think most SMBs have a clue what it is, why we want it. So there's a huge education curve still for that.
okay.
The appel should be make it easy, not only in the name.
Right.
And make it portable. Yeah.
Right. It has to be affordable. Again, I mean, because let's face it, with the software as a service thing, some vendors have remained very cost effective. but other vendors have become really like a giant money pit. It's not always an inexpensive option anymore, right?
Some of them have gotten an activist investor right now. And
What a surprise!
looking at
To
the
the
time.
time.
Looking at the time.
Yeah.
I
look at
know
the
you're a
time.
busy lady, and I know we do not only take the little finger, but tend to take more than just the arm.
Well, I like all those little flashcards. Those are great.
Me too. I love it.
Yeah. Well, they're a differentiator of ours.
They are.
Yeah.
Aside of the glasses.
Yeah,
Which are
yeah.
quite unique for this time, I guess. Looking into the trends that you see, what would be your biggest wish, the one biggest wish that should happen, that SMBs should do? As a famous last word kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I think the biggest thing for most companies is to do a really thorough self-exam and figure out what friction in their company is really getting in the way, right, of them being more successful. Because in most cases, they're not going to be able to do a lot of different things in the next few months or the next year. They're going to be able to do one or two. And every vendor under the sun is telling them, we can help you do whatever X is, faster, cheaper, easier. And it's hard. It's hard to weed through all that. So I think the thing is really look in your company. Are you having a lot of roadblocks in area A, area B, area C? And then look at, okay, maybe I'm having a lot of roadblocks in all three of those areas, but which of those areas do I think I can put a solution in place with the least risk that's going to get me the most benefit? And so I don't think any of it starts with technology. I think it starts with what do you need to do more effectively in your business, and then look at how can I do that? How can I use technology to do that?
Figure out where the bottlenecks are.
Yeah, and we all have them.
Yeah. Mine is I have only two hands. Okay, Laurie, that's been amazing.
Yes.
Well, it was fun to talk to you guys as
yeah.
always. And
Yeah.
belated Happy New
Same.
Year.
Oh yeah,
And to you too.
and to you,
Thanks.
right. So thanks to you, thanks to the audience who is still there or not. Didn't check,
know
that's
who
why
you
I
are.
say you know where we are and you know who we are. So visit us again next week. We are going backstage now. See you next time.
Peace.